The Nuremberg Trials stand as one of the most crucial events after World War II, marking the moment when top Nazi war criminals were held accountable for their actions. While Adolf Hitler cowardly avoided facing justice by committing suicide, many others were brought to trial. In this first episode, we will explore the Nuremberg Trials, focusing on Hitler's rise to power and the onset of World War II. The trial commenced on November 20th, 1945, at the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, with over 200 journalists from around the globe in attendance. Only 5 German media representatives were accredited. The Nazi defendants were seated at 2 long benches, under the flags of the victorious powers, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the Soviet Union, which hung above the judge's bench. The proceedings were translated into 4 languages: German, English, French, and Russian, with all participants provided with headphones for real-time translation. The defendants had a total of 27 defense attorneys. The first session began at 10:03 a.m. 4 judges and their alternates presided over the trial, with Soviet representatives in uniforms rather than traditional judicial robes. The Soviet Union was represented by Major General Iona Nikitchenko and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Volchkov, the British by Sir Geoffrey Lawrence and Sir Norman Burkitt, the Americans by Judge Francis Biddle and John Parker, and the French by Henri Donadieu de Vabres and Robert Falco. On the first day, 21 Nazis heard the charges against them. Among the accused were Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and Wilhelm Keitel. During the reading of the indictments, Joachim von Ribbentrop fainted, leading to his temporary removal from the courtroom. The Nazis pleaded not guilty, with some attempting to deflect responsibility by disputing the charges, a tactic notably used by Göring. In the following days, Göring elaborated on how Hitler rose to power, detailing the circumstances of the Reichstag fire, while claiming he did not directly participate in it. The trial scrutinized the entire period of Nazi rule in Germany, as the judges sought to uncover the workings of the criminal regime led by Adolf Hitler. Göring discussed the atrocities committed against political opponents after Hitler's ascension, acknowledging that abuses occurred and innocent people were killed. However, he argued that such mistakes were inevitable, given the scale of events, and even described it as the least bloody revolution in history. Previously unknown documents were revealed during the trial, including evidence that the reoccupation of the Rhineland in 1936, which violated the Treaty of Versailles, had been planned by Hitler a year earlier. American prosecutors presented a document showing that Hitler had planned for war long before 1939. This was supported by a protocol from a meeting in Berlin in November 1937, attended by Hitler, Werner von Blomberg, and Hermann Göring. This document was one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the trial. During this meeting, Hitler suggested that the Third Reich should take decisive actions before 1943, targeting Czechoslovakia and Austria first, correctly predicting that neither Britain nor France would defend the Czechs. In prison, Göring told his psychologist how easily Hitler convinced France and Britain to abandon Czechoslovakia through the Munich Agreement, allegedly without consulting the Czechs. The Nuremberg Tribunal in 1945 dedicated several sessions to the events of Kristallnacht. 10 years earlier, Göring had announced the Nuremberg Laws, which stripped Jews of their German citizenship. On the night of November 9, 1938, synagogues were burned, Jewish shops were vandalized, and 20,000 Jews were dragged from their homes and arrested. Göring claimed before the tribunal that these events were spontaneous and that Kristallnacht and the destruction of Jewish shops were not his initiatives as they harmed the German economy. He blamed Joseph Goebbels for the violence. A crucial piece of evidence during the Nuremberg trials was the protocol from a conference held on May 23, 1939, in Hitler's office at the New Reich Chancellery. It was during this meeting that a decision was made that would impact millions of lives worldwide. Hitler suggested that the only way to obtain Lebensraum, living space, for Germans was through the invasion of other countries and war, primarily targeting Poland. He also planned to subjugate the Benelux countries and France to neutralize the British. Hitler firmly believed that neither Britain nor France would defend Poland. Just 10 days after this meeting, Goebbels launched a propaganda campaign in Germany, accusing Poles of violence against ethnic Germans. Meanwhile, in Nuremberg, the diary of Italian fascist Count Ciano was presented, which included an entry from his conversation with Ribbentrop on August 11, 1939. In it, Ribbentrop clearly stated, "We want and are striving for war." At the Nuremberg Trials, Ribbentrop denied ever saying this, claiming it was a fabrication by the Italian. And how did the representatives of the Soviet Union handle the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in Nuremberg? They must have felt at least uncomfortable in this situation. The highly secret treaty between the USSR and the Third Reich came to light in Nuremberg thanks to the defense attorney of the accused Rudolf Hess, who was given the document by an American journalist who received it from an unknown person in the U.S. State Department. The recording of the Soviet-German pact quickly became a sensation. Prosecutors from the Soviet Union, who themselves might soon become the accused, particularly since Ribbentrop confirmed its authenticity, initially claimed they knew nothing about such a document and warned against quoting it. When the foreign minister of the Third Reich became a witness, the Soviet representatives asked him not to discuss the matter as it was not the subject of the trial. Ultimately, the representatives of the other three powers did not address the issue, as the defense did not want to reveal how the document was obtained. The judges therefore called it evidence of dubious origin. Regarding the attack on Poland on September 1, 1939, General Erwin Lahus, a close associate of Admiral Canaris, testified, among others. The military confirmed the delivery of several Polish uniforms, which were then used for the so-called Gleiwitz incident. The incident provided Hitler with a pretext to attack Poland. The accused Nazis during the Nuremberg trials emphasized that Warsaw was a fortress with strong anti-aircraft defenses. Kesselring, responsible for Luftwaffe raids over the Polish capital, assured that they limited bombings to spare the civilian population. Other Nazis confirmed that Hitler already planned to eliminate the Polish intelligentsia, calling it political order. Canaris opposed this, fearing world reaction, while Ribbentrop assured from the dock that he did not call for the murder of Jews. Soviet prosecutors called Friedrich Paulus, the commander of the 6th Army at Stalingrad, as a witness. The military officer testified that plans to invade the USSR were already underway in September 1940. Actions related to troop concentration began 3 months later. Paulus confirmed that the invasion of the Soviet Union was delayed by 5 weeks due to the invasion of Yugoslavia. Besides Hitler, he identified Kittel, Jodl, and Göring as the main architects of the Barbarossa Plan. According to American representatives in Nuremberg, the occupation of the Soviet Union was necessary for Hitler to prepare for an attack on the United States. These plans allegedly emerged as early as the fall of 1940. Meanwhile, the Nuremberg Tribunal did not address the later phases of World War II. More important were other issues, genocide and war crimes. Rosenberg, the creator of National Socialist racist theories and Reich Minister for the occupied Eastern Territories. In other words, an exceptionally perverse and disgusting persona. Also among the accused was Julius Streicher, organizer of Jewish pogroms and publisher of an anti-Semitic newspaper. Dr. Strummer testified before the Nuremberg Tribunal that he understood from Mein Kampf how dangerous the Jews were, yet he also insisted during the trial that he knew nothing about the mass murders of Jews, even when prosecutors cited specific numbers of victims from articles in the weekly he ran. Among the accused was also Hans Fritzsche, Goebbels' right-hand man and head of the domestic press department in the Ministry of Propaganda. Interestingly, he was acquitted because the tribunal found no evidence that he knew the information he disseminated was false. Baldur von Schirach, the Hitler youth leader, admitted guilt and confirmed he led German youth astray. Hitler's Reich Chancellery also testified before the tribunal. His statements indicated that Hitler was already considering the murder of mentally ill persons in the fall of 1939. The first victims were from an institution in Sonnenstein, where over 15,000 people died. This was a prelude to the murders later carried out on Jews. Witnesses testified in Nuremberg that the creator of the method related to gassing people was Christian Wirth, who was a camp commandant at Belzec during the war. The criminal was killed by Yugoslav partisans near Trieste in 1944. One of the most mysterious figures during the Nuremberg trials was Rudolf Hess, Hitler's former deputy who fled to Britain in 1941. The German claimed he did not remember former colleagues, including Göring. A special team of doctors from the 4 victorious countries examined Hess to determine if he truly had amnesia. During his imprisonment, he behaved at least strangely, had very precise wishes about meals, complained that the bread he received was baked from spoiled flour, refused to eat eggs, and when he did eat, he lay on the floor, claiming it was more comfortable, and announced that once he left prison, he would build a homeopathic hospital. His interrogation before the tribunal took place on November 30th, 1945. His defense attorney filed a motion to declare him legally incompetent. Meanwhile, Hess, as if nothing had happened, asked to speak, stood up, and said he remembered everything and wanted to be judged. He said he had simulated memory loss for tactical reasons. The tribunal granted his request. Prosecutors did not want any leniency for what he did in 1941, arguing that until then, Hess was a leading figure in the Third Reich with blood on his hands, of thousands or even millions of people. Therefore, Hess never fulfilled his dream of building a hospital, spending the rest of his life in prison. Among the accused in Nuremberg was also his successor, Martin Bormann, the only one to be tried in absentia. He was last seen on the night of May 1st, 1945, fleeing Berlin. He hated Slavs, Jews, and the church. He was sentenced to death in absentia in Nuremberg. It was later revealed that Bormann committed suicide, likely on the morning of May 2nd, by biting a cyanide capsule.